Welcome to Over 40, Fabulous and Pregnant. I am your host, Jamie Massey, and you're listening to episode 72. If you are looking for pregnancy stories of women over 40, you've come to the right place. And today on the show, we have Kezia on to share her pregnancy journey at 41. In this episode, she didn't think she would ever get married. But she shares how she met her husband and immigrated to the U.S. with her daughter from Canada. So she wanted to have a child with her new husband, and she shares how difficult it was for her, and she miscarried on her 40th birthday. Now, Orla, the previous show, she miscarried, and she went ahead and got married, holding those babies. And I'm pretty sure Candace also had a miscarriage and went on her honeymoon, if I'm remembering that correctly. And I just love seeing these examples of strong women. I mean, I'm sure there's a reel in there somewhere, but it just warms my heart seeing this. So when people say, Jamie, how do you podcast and miscarry? Oh my gosh, like it puts what I'm going through to shame. So it's really awesome. And I did want to mention that I'm switching up the community. I am actually working on a program to help you believe pregnancy is possible. And I want to kind of outline the steps it took to help me have a better trying to conceive experience. And I'm also working to help answer all of your questions in the community to help you navigate through things like the donor egg process and how to prepare for a transfer. We have someone in the community right now who's preparing for a transfer. So it was really great to kind of go over that. So feel free to ask me if you have any questions you need help with while you're trying to conceive as I'm building this right now. It's just for women over 40 who are trying to conceive at the moment until I can add the next layer of pregnancy. And this week, I am 20 weeks. I'm getting my pregnancy pillow tomorrow, and I'm feeling pretty good about the items on my registry so far. If you have any must-haves, I'm totally open to all the recommendations. And I've been feeling pretty good, and things have been going pretty good until Thursday. I told you the story on Instagram, but Thursday, it was quite a strange day. You know, my phone, of course, it stopped working like that morning. And I mean, it's kind of done it before, but so I just kind of blew it off until when I actually got to work, I realized that AT&T had an outage and I was a part of it. So I didn't have any phone. And I think it was about lunchtime. I was warming up my lunch and I noticed my phone started working all of a sudden, which was really nice to have, of course. I needed to watch YouTube at lunch. And so while my food was warming up, I went to the restroom and I saw blood. And I was like, no. This isn't happening. So I did it again, and there was more blood on the toilet paper. And I really started to panic. And, you know, the thought process was going to my head like, oh my gosh, thank goodness I can call the midwife now. And I had to wait for that returned phone call. So I grabbed my lunch and sat outside and I tried to eat while I waited for the returned phone call. I didn't, normally I often tell my sisters or my mom what's going on. And I was just like, no. I'm not telling anybody until I get an appointment to go, and I need to be in the car. Otherwise, I'm just going to lose it. And I'm going to wait in my car to actually talk to anybody on the phone. And I texted my husband, and he was busy. So I finally got the call, and she said that I should go to the OB/ER. There was a midwife on call there. And that's what I did. I went straight there. I called my husband like 3 or 4 times because he didn't answer. And apparently his friend goes, "Yeah, hey dude, your phone has been ringing." Yeah, that was me. And I just started crying, and I was like, I can't call anybody and talk until I get in the car. And I didn't want anybody else to indulge in any negative emotion on the way to the hospital. So I didn't tell anybody else other than my husband. And I was really lucky that my husband was nearby, because as I'm walking across the road, like the street area to the emergency room, my husband is like passing me. So it was really nice for us to kind of walk in together, basically. And the intake was pretty quick. She said she wanted to do a vaginal exam and then do an ultrasound, a vaginal ultrasound, and one of those on top. I get them confused, like ultrasound versus sonogram, whichever. So she first did a vaginal exam, and I really haven't had one this pregnancy at all. And she mentioned there was some tissue. And so when she uses that word, I'm thinking like tissue when you have your cycle. It's very thin, fine pieces of tissue, right? And so my husband looks down there, like everybody is down there looking, and it's quite large. She called it a vaginal polyp. And because of pregnancy, there was just a lot more blood flow down there, and it was getting larger, and it was, I guess it burst, and that's what caused the bleeding. So she was pretty confident that's what was causing the bleeding. And so she decided, of course, another doctor came in, like an OB came in. She wanted to look at it. So, everybody, I am spread eagle sitting on a wedge. Everyone is looking down there. They even took a photo with my phone, with the midwife, her phone also. Just like, this is so surreal. And she decided to take a stitch and basically cut off the circulation to the polyp, so then it would eventually fall off. And so I had a shot of Novocaine right there where it was. And let me tell you, that is least desirable situation. I mean, no. There's more undesirable situations. But that was not enjoyable in the least. But she tied it off with a stitch, and like, oh my gosh, there was a lot of blood, like on the wedge, on the sheet. I'm like, wow, because of a polyp. So after she got that done, then she wanted to take the vaginal ultrasound thing and measure my cervix and make sure that was long. It was long. I think she said a 2 is okay, and it was like a 4. So that was really reassuring that, I wasn't dilated, nothing was going on. And then she did I guess a sonogram on the outside of my belly. And we saw him and the heartbeat looking just fine. So, I was so unbelievably relieved because I've heard, so many women, it's really common to bleed during pregnancy. And, with my past history, this is my 5th pregnancy. Blood it means not good. So, it was really scary, but man, this was not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. And we really could not be more relieved with that. And what else? Oh, yes. I was going to mention that this wonderful situation, I had lidocaine, a stitch. I think they gave me some pads. I'm thinking of everything like I used there. I think that's about it. The grand total was like $2,000 for that trip to the ER. So that was really amazing. And yeah, what a relief. Oh, you know what? I was going to tell you. I also went to the midwife, the birthing center yesterday. They wanted to check on it again because she thought it would fall off in a few days. And my husband looked at it and he's like, no, it didn't even change. I guess Friday night. But then Saturday, when we went to the birthing center, it had since it didn't have any blood flow anymore, it had kind of looked like a raisin, for a better lack of words. And so it pretty much, she kind of pulled it off. And I had more Novocaine, but lidocaine, Novocaine. Maybe it is Novocaine. Anyways, it was a topical, so it wasn't too bad. But I think it hurt worse on Saturday than it did when I got the shot. And I think it really was just the quality of painkillers between the injection and a topical. I really think so. Because I was pretty sore yesterday. Like it felt raw. But wow, I'm so glad. Oh, I'm so glad. And I also was going to say that I was feeling the baby as I was even being wheeled into the ER. So there was some sense of relief. And also just hearing all these stories also gave me relief, knowing that some women do bleed. So all in all, pretty much best case scenario on that. But I am really excited to share her story today. I know you're really going to like it. So let's just get into it. Kezia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And she is on the show today to share her pregnancy journey at 41. But before we get started, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am currently 42 years old. I am Canadian, born and raised in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, which is on the west side of the country, probably one of the coldest places you would ever go to. And I grew up there, and I also lived overseas in my 20s. I lived in England for about 7 years, and I lived in 2 other places in Canada. And the last place I lived in Canada was outside of Toronto for about 10 years. And during that time, in 2018, I met my now husband, and we met online on Instagram. And we did kind of the long distance thing. In the middle of there, of course, is the pandemic. And so eventually, I have a daughter who's 9, and her and I were waiting to immigrate. And we ended up immigrating December 15th, 2020. So we just passed our 3 years here. And I work for myself. I started a business. I facilitate writing workshops, mostly for women. A lot of them are in recovery. I've been sober from drugs and alcohol for 3 years. It was 3 years, November 1st.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. And I help women channel their emotions and their experiences through writing. So things that they've been through, sobriety and getting sober and staying sober is really a challenge. It's hard to do it alone. It's kind of like the infertility or fertility journey. You feel alone. And once you realize that there's people out there who maybe speak your language and share stories that resonate for you, it can feel a lot less daunting, and you can feel more a sense of peace that what's meant to be happening is happening for you. So kind of has like a ripple effect to a lot of areas of my life. And it actually, my sobriety really helped me through the things that we went through to get to our baby today.
Yeah. Do you want to start there? I think we should start when you met your husband in 2018.
Sure. Yeah. Him and we met on a different Instagram account than the one I have now. And I don't have this other account. And to be honest, I don't know exactly what it was that I posted, but somehow I showed up on his Explore page. I think it was something to do with like sobriety. I started exploring it before I even got sober. I was trying to moderate alcohol and find a way to fit it into my life. And it just kept failing because I'm not a person that can have just one drink every now and then. It doesn't work that way for me. And so in my attempts to moderate, I was trying to find community, which is kind of what I've done now through sobriety and through my fertility and through postpartum and motherhood in my 40s. There's definite niches and communities and stuff. So he sent me a DM and I happened to find it in my other folder. And I messaged him back because he referenced something. I put a quote in there from a book that I love, and he had referenced it, and we started talking. And he grew up in Pennsylvania, where we live now. And he was living at home with his parents at the time. He felt that he was never going to meet the woman to marry and all this kind of stuff. And him and I texted and FaceTimed and chatted for 6 months back and forth. And this was in June of 2018, through that whole summer, through the fall. And then he finally flew out to Toronto to visit me around my daughter's birthday's at the beginning of December. And he came just before that, like American Thanksgiving, I guess. And we went shopping. And at the time I was living pretty poor, did not have a lot of money, my daughter's dad was not in the picture. His family was, but my family was all on the other side of the country where I grew up. So I just didn't have a support network. I was on the list for subsidized housing through the government, which was like an 8-year waiting list. We were renting. My parents were paying our rent and just kind of surviving. Yeah. So when I met James and he flew out, and a lot of people in my life thought I was crazy. Like, oh my gosh, you don't know this guy. Like, why is he coming out? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, he's just different. We had been talking for so long at that point. Mm-hmm. And he told me early on, he said, I'm going to marry you. So just be prepared for that. This was like 3 weeks in. I was like, whatever, like, who is this guy? And he's younger than me. He's about 5 years younger than me. And I had it in my head that I was never going to get married. We are married. we got married in 2021. But yeah, so we met. And quite quickly, after he had said that, we wanted to start the immigration process, even though we weren't technically engaged till like the following spring. But we wanted to start that process because we knew that it was going to take a long time. And we didn't know exactly what to expect. We started the process in 2019, but then in March of 2020, the pandemic, like lockdown happened. So my daughter and I had an immigration interview scheduled in Montreal for it was either the very end of March or the first week of April. And they canceled it indefinitely. And we were like, no. So we had no idea. They couldn't give us a timeline. Well, the plan was she was going to start the next school year here in the States. We were like, great. And the way that my visa was going to work, we couldn't get married till I moved over here. So everything was in limbo. We knew we wanted to have a family. He doesn't have any kids of his own at that point, biologically. And so we, but we couldn't start trying until I moved here. And so we were just kind of in limbo. And we finally got the letter and the email saying that we had our interview scheduled, her and I, for the end of October of 2020. So what's that, like 6 months, 7 months from when we had started. And so we went to that interview, and from there it went pretty fast. Her and I packed everything up. My mom flew out to help us pack up my whole house. We got rid of a bunch of stuff and we packed the rest of it into this like trailer, like it's a container that goes in a trailer with a bunch of other stuff, other people's containers, and it gets sent over the border and you see it, 6 weeks later or whatever. And then her and I flew, me and her and our cat had to fly and do immigration, clear all the immigration in Toronto. And we landed here with just the clothes on our back, basically.
Wow.
To start a new life. And I was 38 at the time. And yeah. And so as soon as we landed here, we knew we had to get married for me to stay. But there's it's a very complicated process. We did not have an immigration lawyer or anything. My husband did all the paperwork himself, everything. Wow. And it's a lot of work. And there's a lot of steps that you have to follow. And so we followed all the steps, and we had a courthouse wedding in February of 2021. And then we got married in Vegas in May of 2021. It's just fun. Seven people for our guests. Yeah. Doing Vegas. I was 6 months sober at that time. So that was kind of interesting to do Vegas.
Yeah. Sober. Yeah.
But it was a really beautiful wedding. And yeah, so that took us up to 2021. Once we were married that spring, we could start trying to have a baby. We didn't know what to expect. I had not tried to actively get pregnant with my daughter, and I was 32 at the time, turning 33. So I was much younger. And so we just started trying. And I did end up getting pregnant really quickly. We had a trip to Myrtle Beach, a family trip that summer in August. But my period was late, and I was like, I'll just test. I was pregnant. Beginning of August. And we got back, and pretty quickly after we got back from that trip, I had some spotting and stuff like that. But I thought it was implantation bleeding, and because I had that with my daughter, and I was like, okay, nothing to be worried about. It wasn't gushing, it wasn't bright red or anything like that, but it was steady, and it kept coming. And so we went to, and we were new here. Like, I didn't have my whole history with an OB here. The OB who had delivered my daughter had actually passed away in the time in Canada, in between that pregnancy and this one. So I was having trouble getting some of my records and things like that. And with my daughter, I had been on progesterone for those first 12 weeks because I would have probably had a miscarriage with her too. And what ended up happening was the bleeding got worse. I found an OB here, it's like a women's health clinic. So they have multiple nurses. When you're pregnant there, you see all of them. You have like your OB, but you see a bunch of midwives and stuff like that. And so I was hooked up with them, and we were going for very frequent ultrasounds during that period of 5 weeks or whatever after that vacation. And each time we were looking to find the heartbeat towards the end of that, and there was no heartbeat. And there was a little start of a growth of whatever the very beginning part, but there was no heartbeat to it. And that was just devastating. It was because we were trying to stay hopeful. People always tell you, they always have so much advice, and it's really difficult to tell people to kindly just give you space to do whatever is going to happen. And we didn't tell a lot of people that we were pregnant or anything, but my mother-in-law knew, my father-in-law, and we just held out hope for that whole time. And there was never a heartbeat. So I ended up having, my birthday's in September. I was having a miscarriage at the beginning of September on my birthday, my 40th birthday.
Oh, how tough.
you feel like it's your only chance. Like you're just like, it's never going to happen again. It's literally never going to happen. I didn't know anyone here or anywhere, but let alone here. I didn't really have any friends yet. I didn't know anyone, another woman who'd been through a miscarriage, didn't have anyone to talk to about it. And, I work for myself and I work at home, and my husband works outside of the home and he works a lot. And there was no follow-up support after the miscarriage.
Yeah.
And I was telling you this before we started recording, but they should have, at that point after the miscarriage, they should have done a D&C. I ended up miscarrying at home. They prescribed me the ibuprofen 8s or what, I can't remember what they're called. It starts with an M. They prescribed them to help my body miscarry, but I came home that day and I ended up miscarrying at home in the toilet, but they should have done a D&C after that.
Now, did they do a sonogram afterwards to make sure everything was done?
No.
Okay.
And that's the part that really got me, is that I understand my job as like the patient is to like also follow up, but I feel like you've just been through something so traumatic, and they could have had someone call me and be like, hey, you need to schedule this appointment to have your D&C. I didn't even know what a D&C was then. I didn't know that I had to go and because what happens if there's tissue left in your uterus, it's a less than optimal environment if you're then trying to get pregnant again.
Yeah.
So I was left with a less than optimal environment, but I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. And so I stayed with the same place, and I ended up seeing that winter. I hadn't got my period back after this, by the way. Like, it hadn't come back. The miscarriage happened in September. In like November, I went back to the clinic and I was like, hey, we want to start trying again, but I haven't got my period. What can I do? There's 2 male doctors there, and I met with one of them, and I had a extremely bad experience with him. And I'll just say that, and it wasn't because he was male. I said, my period hasn't come back. And he wanted me to run down all of the supplements and all the vitamins I was taking. They wanted to understand what I was doing, right? And he basically, like, everything that I would mention, I said I was taking, for example, something called Vitex at that time. Mm-hmm. And he basically just tore it apart and was like, well, if you're taking herbal stuff, it's not backed by medicine, right? And I understood that, but at the same time, there's a right way and a wrong way to tell someone that, who's a woman who's just been through a miscarriage. And he had no bedside manner, I guess they call it, but it was more than that. So anyway, he wanted me to quit taking certain things that I was taking, and that was fine. I was desperate to get pregnant, right?
Sure. You'll do anything.
What they do in a lot of these cases is they put you on the pill. And I was not on the pill before this. I was decades ago. I was on the birth control pill, and I came off of it because I was getting really bad mood swings and things like this. And he says, we're going to put you on the pill. We're going to try it for a couple of months. It's supposed to induce your period, right? Uh-huh. But he gave me something that didn't work. And so he gave me something called, I don't know what the other name for it is, but it's called medroxyprogesterone. Okay. And when he prescribed that, within 3 days of taking it, I had a huge panic attack. I was at the grocery store and my heart rate went up to like 170. Like my heart was like beating out of my chest for like several minutes. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what was going on. And I was having this like attack. I couldn't tell. I was by myself. I didn't know how to tell anyone. I came home that day after that, and I crawled in our front door of our apartment, and I was laying on the ground. I called my husband. I said, I don't know what's happening to my body. I was like hot and like cold. And I said, and we decided, I was like, I can't take this. I had taken it that day, and I called back, and that doctor was like, I've never had this happen in 25 years, 30 years of practicing. He's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, you must have taken it wrong.
Not the words you want to hear from a doctor.
No, I was like, I literally did exactly what you asked me. I was beside myself. What ended up happening was I stopped taking it, and I was extremely upset with the way I'd been treated. I I felt lost. I felt like I'd been let down. I didn't know who I could trust at that practice. I didn't have anyone to talk to. My husband was very compassionate, obviously, but we were at a loose end.
Yeah.
We were desperate, and we reached out to big fertility clinic, and we reached out to them, and we're like, because my period still had not come back. And we were like, okay, this is like January of that fall of 2022. And we thought, okay, well, maybe something else is going on. That doctor planted the idea in my head that maybe I was starting perimenopause too. Again, not what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. And were you feeling a sense of urgency, like you're 40, you're kind of in a hurry at this point too?
I was. And what ended up happening, so that panic attack was the first of like multiple panic attacks in the 4 weeks in January. I had like back-to-back panic attacks at home. I'd be sitting and my heart rate would start cycling really high. It culminated that I ended up from my doctor's office, not my OB, but my general practitioner. I ended up being taken by ambulance to the ER in the beginning of February. And they were testing me to see if I had like an arrhythmia or like all this kind of stuff.
Whoa.
From my vantage point now, I can tell you that I 100% think it had to do with the stress of what I was going through. And also what he had prescribed me. It threw my whole system out of whack. Like it was not necessary to what I was going through to do that. My hormones had never rebalanced because we hadn't done the D&C. So my body was very confused, and it kind of mimicked some of the symptoms that women in perimenopause get. I guess with like anxiety and things like that. I end up in ER. I stay there overnight. I leave with a little heart monitor thing that I get for like 2 weeks, and they monitor my heart. Nothing's wrong, right? That age-old story of like anxiety, turns out it's just stress, right? Nothing's wrong. But I am distraught because I still haven't got my period back. We still can't, and also all the stress of that affects you as a couple. So we're really not connecting in the same way. We're not approaching making a baby with the same positivity and light that we were before.
Yeah.
So I was desperate, and I'm the type of person that I love researching things. I love reading. I love books, and I'm very good at finding information. So I'm on the internet trying to find a different doctor. I'm like, screw this place. Like this has, and Shady Grove, for people listening who are going through fertility, will know that it's very expensive. And we were at a crossroads because we are still living in an apartment and we want to buy a house. We started later. We got married later. Our lives started later. So we had this horrible decision of, do we buy a house or do we try for fertility treatment, IVF? Because the IUI at that point, my husband and I agreed, was just going to be pointless. We're like, it's not going to be worth it for us. That was our decision. So we were at that crossroads, and I was like, I need to find somewhere else. Did some research, found a woman who looked amazing. Like she had been working in Baltimore, but she was now working. We live in a smaller town, kind of outside of Baltimore, about an hour outside in Maryland. And she was starting to work at our clinic here, I think 1 or 2 days a week. And I was like, I'm going to see if I can get in with her. The name's Dr. Nicholson. I was like, I'm going to see if I can get in with her. And I'm pretty persistent when it comes, as a lot of us are, women, when we're trying to get pregnant. So I was like, I'm going to call, I'm going to be friends with her secretary. I'm going to show up with chocolates, whatever. I didn't do that stuff, but I was persistent. And
you were willing to do it.
It was right. Exactly. I was like a train on a speeding train on a track. Like I was going there. And so I go for the appointment. I take my daughter because it's school break. It's like, at this point, it's June of that year, the end of June of that year. And I'm very discouraged. Still don't have my period back. Don't know what's going on. Met Dr. Nicholson. Come to find out that she had twins via IVF in her 40s. And she's like, we're going to get you pregnant. And I was like, the first time I met her, and I was like, okay, I would love that. That
feels so good. Just hearing those words too.
It was just, her whole manner was just like, I just wanted to hug this woman. I was just
Yeah.
like, take me under your wing. Like, we're going to do this. I felt like a child. I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
So come home. But she said she was shocked they hadn't done the DNC. And she said, the first thing we're going to do is I had to do all these other things when I was with Shady Grove. They do a bunch of, and now my memory betrays me because it's been a couple years, but they, as people listening know, they do all sorts of tests to see what things are like inside and to see. I had no obstructions in my fallopian tubes. They did my AMH and my levels, like things were fairly good. We couldn't see what the problem was, right? But I knew that the DNC had never been done. First thing Dr. Nicholson says is, we'll just do that and we'll just get that cleaned up. She does the procedure. This is in beginning of August of 2022. She says, and she's not a fertility doctor, but she says, I can prescribe you. She preferred letrozole over Clomid. She said, I'll prescribe you letrozole for ovulation. She goes, I like to do it for 3 months. We try it and we assess and see if it works, obviously. But if it doesn't, why is it not working? We try one more round of 3 months. And then she goes, that's all I can do. Right. And I was like, it's worth a shot because it's not expensive. You just take it before bed every night, whatever. Took it the first month. And then you go to get your levels tested. And I had not ovulated. And I knew I hadn't either. I was like, so discouraged.
Yeah. Even though it's just the first month.
Even though it was the first month.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
I was discouraged. And at this point, I was turning 41. And so we did it the second month, and I could tell that something was different. I knew I had ovulated. And at this point, okay, I was obsessed with ovulation sticks, with ovulation kits, with basal temperature, with tracking on my phone. I had every app. I'm sure everyone can relate to this. I was obsessed. So I had been testing everything, but I just knew. And so we did what we had to do, and we go in, and I can tell you the exact, like, I know that was the time that it worked, right? We go in, and what they're looking for is to see, is it the G something levels?
HGC levels?
HGC levels.
Yeah.
They're looking to see significant increases, especially in those early days, because it eventually hits a plateau. Maybe that's the 12 weeks it hits that plateau. And then once the placenta takes over from your body, then you're not going to see the increasing levels. But they're looking for significant. So I'm going like every couple of days, and you don't just go to, you have to go to the blood lab to do it. So this is in our hospital here. It's a little blood lab. I'm getting to know these ladies. I'm like showing up. I'm like, but you're so nervous through it too. And what happens is, what's running through my head is, I don't want my mental state to affect what's going on physically. So I'm trying to be all positive, and I'm trying to not think about it and just relax and all this crap that people tell you. And I'm like, you can't though. It's easier said than done. It really is. And in the meantime, you're dealing with people making pregnancy announcements on social media and, family members, wives getting pregnant and wanting to talk to you about it and whatever. And so it's just all that stuff that I'm sure everyone is going through something like that. But my levels were going up. And the difference, that the first time that we started feeling a little bit of a glimmer was when we got the heartbeat at 6 weeks. And we never had that with the miscarriage. But even then, it was still too early. I was like, this is 6 weeks. I'm like, we can't get our hopes up, right? Because of my age, they were sending me for ultrasounds weekly. So a lot of people wouldn't get ultrasounds till like 10 or 12 weeks. For those listening, they're in their 40s. So you are going to be getting fairly regular ultrasounds. But I was getting them more regular because I started having some spotting. And this is exactly what happened. It mimicked what had happened with the miscarriage. The spotting started happening around 7.5 weeks. I was like, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
My husband's like, there's nothing we can do. If that's what's happening, there's nothing you can do. And I just didn't want to accept it. I was like, I can't accept that there's nothing I can do. I did research, like I said, I love doing this research, and I had come across something called a subchorionic hematoma in my research. And for anyone listening, it's bleeding. You're basically bleeding. It's a bruise inside of your uterus when your placenta starts growing and it's attaching. Sometimes it creates like a pocket in between where the baby is and where the placenta is. Now, depending on the position of it, it doesn't have to affect the function of the placenta, right? Luckily, as it turns out, where mine was, it's okay. But what happens is your subchorionic hematoma grows. It's like a blood blister, and it's growing and it's growing. And when it ruptures is when you get your bleeds. And some women get one bleed. Some women have multiple bleeds. I had 3 major bleeds all in my kitchen at 10, 12, and 13 weeks.
Wow. That must have been just awful, scary.
Yeah. And what it feels like you're getting your period, but like the gush. So I'm making dinner and it's just a gush, and it can be bright red. It's not old blood. It's usually there might be a little bit of old blood in there, but it's usually new blood. And some of the old blood is sloughing off, right? But for me, there was no pain with it. Right. So you think to yourself, if you're having a miscarriage, wouldn't you think that there's pain, contractions?
Yeah, definitely.
During this time, after the first one had happened, I said to the doctor, I think this is what it is. And maybe I said it to the midwife. I said, I found something online called a subchorionic hematoma. I joined this Facebook support group to just kind of poke around in there and see what was going on. I had my ultrasound, and sometimes what it shows up as is just a little shadow on the ultrasound. And I was like, okay. And what they do is they measure it. Excuse me. They measure the circumference of this to see how much it's growing and to see if it's affecting the pregnancy. And so they did that. And so after the first bleed, as that happens, I call my OB clinic. They have like an after hours nurse line. I think it goes to the hospital. And I say to them, I'm bleeding. I'm like hyperventilating too. Like, I'm having a miscarriage. My husband is driving home from work and he's not even home yet. And I'm calling him and I'm like, I'm having a miscarriage. And he sends his mom over, my mother-in-law. And so we call and they're like, okay. She goes, is there any tissue in what's coming out? I said, no. Are you having contractions? No. I couldn't figure it out. Like there was this feeling in my head that everything was okay, but not. I don't know how to describe it. It was like there was like an angel being like, okay, the baby's okay, but this thing is still going to happen to you. I don't know at this point, I don't know what the lesson is in all of this, right? Because I'm not ready to receive that lesson. I just want a healthy baby. And it truly felt like I was losing him. It happened the following week. So she said, you can come to the ER and they can do a scan. She goes, but I'll tell you right now, because you're still so early in your pregnancy, there's nothing they can do if you are having a miscarriage, basically. Like they can't stop it. And I'm like, okay, so I decided not to go. I had that weird sense that everything was okay. A week later, I'm standing in my kitchen making dinner and the same thing happened. And when it happens, I had issues throughout my pregnancy where I suffer from anxiety anyway. And so I do get little, like, not full-blown panic attacks like I was having, but like little anxiety attacks. When I was pregnant, it was worse. And a lot of women experience this, that your anxiety is worse, not just because you might have had the miscarriage, but also because your heart rate is generally higher because you got more blood pumping through you because you're supporting a baby. So I was having these mini like anxiety attacks. So standing in the kitchen exactly a week later, same thing happens. I call the nurse, same thing. She says, you can come in. Still no contractions, nothing happening. And I should add, the pregnancy was progressing. So while the hematoma was growing, my placenta and the uterus and the baby were growing. And that's what they look for. They look for if there's a failure to thrive because of that hematoma, then it's more concern. But they also look at the position of it. So every ultrasound I would have, and I had probably about 15 throughout the pregnancy, they're measuring, and it got up to over 9 centimeters.
Whoa.
So it was big, but the baby was always a little bit bigger. But what they say to you is it can rupture at any point. It can cause placental abruption, which is where the placenta detaches from the uterus. It's really scary. So they're telling me all of this, and I'm just like, and I'm doing my own research, right? Which I don't recommend doing that, but I can't help it. I'm that type of person. I'm like, I need to know. And so you look for the success stories in it. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for that woman who had the 9 centimeter one who went on to have the beautiful baby, right? Where is that story? Mm-hmm. And I did find some stories of hope. And I'm here to give hope to anyone who does have a subchorionic hematoma, that it doesn't have to mean the end of your pregnancy, but every situation is different. If your doctor tells you go on bed rest and don't lift more than your toddler, do it, because there's a reason for it, and you can overexert yourself. My doctor never told me that. I continued to exercise, not at the gym. I continued to exercise at home throughout my whole pregnancy up until the day before I gave birth, and stretching and all the stuff I had been doing, the supplements I had been taking, my prenatals, which I'm still taking now. I'd taken my CoQ10 before the pregnancy. Through the whole pregnancy, I took it as well. Mm-hmm. I took a supplement, an NAD plus, through my whole pregnancy as well. I still take that. And I had 3 major bleeds, and what happens is it can get reabsorbed by your body. So it can start shrinking, and that's what they want to happen. But mine was still there at the time I gave birth. And so it can still be just a little bit of extra blood, or it can be a full-blown thing.
Uh-huh. So did it ever shrink?
It did shrink. Yeah, it did shrink. It never fully went away, but it shrank a little bit.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But it was still there. Like if you were to look at I have an album with all my ultrasounds. Literally, like I said, about 15 of them. I was on weekly. Well, anyone over 40 is on weekly at a certain point, but I was on weekly for about 12 weeks of that.
Wow.
So
that's just a lot of time also.
Oh, because I was going to MFM appointments plus to my OB.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Then at the end, you're doing your non-stress tests.
Uh-huh.
Like your stress test, your MFM, and your OB check for dilation and stuff like that. So luckily what ended up happening, my MFM in the first half of my pregnancy was about a 35-minute drive away. Uh-huh. In the second half, they ended up moving right next door. So if I went to try and get pregnant again, now they're in the same building.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I was in my 3rd trimester in the middle of summer, the heat of summer, because I gave birth July 19th. But yeah, it was,
So I'm assuming with all those ultrasounds, you probably found out the sex somewhere in there.
We were sure that we were having a girl, and my husband really wanted a girl. And we did the blood test. We decided to do the NIP test and all that for Downs and for trisomy and all that stuff. We're just going to do it. It's fairly expensive, but no more expensive than anything else you go through to get here.
Right.
And did that. And we found out at 12 weeks. And we didn't tell our family till 20 weeks. Turns out we were having a boy. So my husband was wrong. I was like, well, it was really up to you. So, I mean, I had nothing to do with this. And we they asked us, do you want it we were doing a gender reveal. My mother-in-law wanted to do one. And I was like, oh, whatever. They didn't know that we already knew. And we got them they sent me an email that day, and my husband was at work, and we were going to open it together, like on FaceTime. So he's like, let's find out together. And I didn't even have to say anything. As soon as I opened it, he was just like, it's a boy, isn't it? I was like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Turned out to be the best thing ever. Our son is amazing. We thought for sure it was a girl, but we did find out. And I found out with my daughter as well. And my husband, this is his first biological child. And I left it up to him as to whether we wanted to find out. We wanted to be able to bond with our baby in that way as well.
Yeah.
It was important to us. We struggled with boys' names for a long time. So we knew that if it was going to be a boy, we wanted some time to think about what his name was going to be, because we'd had this girl's name picked out. And so we finally got to our boy's name. And then we didn't tell anyone the name until my in-laws came to the hospital the day that he was born. It bugged my mother-in-law so much because she does crafting and stuff, and she wanted to make all this stuff for him. And so we just put it on, the whiteboard that they have at hospitals. We just put it on that little whiteboard, like, oh, your nurse today is so-and-so. We're like, my name is Tristan James. And she was like, oh my God. It ended up being fine.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Now, was there any products that helped you during pregnancy?
Yeah. So definitely the CoQ10. I definitely think that helps. That helps with mitochondrial health and like the cell health. The overall cell health. It helps also with your blood pressure, and that it can be such a stressful process. So I should have said I was diagnosed early in the pregnancy with chronic hypertension. What I actually had was white coat hypertension. Every time I knew I had an appointment, I went into a spiral. So I would go in and my blood pressure would be like 140 over 90, right? Every single time, or even higher, because I'd be hyperventilating in my car. And I told them this, but they don't really care not that they don't care, but when it comes to pregnancy, they have to treat it as hypertension. So they wanted me to go on baby aspirin. I didn't go on baby aspirin. It's your decision, right? And I didn't do it because it was a blood thinner and I was having the hematoma. So I was bleeding. These decisions that you have to make and that you don't know, you could look back on later and beat yourself up for that decision. And that happened to me with the miscarriage. Before I realized I was pregnant, I was drinking energy drinks during that pregnancy that we had the miscarriage. And I told myself that was the reason that it happened. Long story short, with the baby aspirin, I again did my research and I was like, it's not for me. I don't want to take it, but apparently, they told me during this pregnancy that it's going to become standard operating procedure for all women over 40 to have to take baby aspirin during their pregnancy. I don't know that it's fully rolled out yet, but I think that is the recommendation. They also recommend it in your preconception phase when you are trying to, and I did take it during that phase. I did take it when we were trying, and then I stopped taking it. I didn't take Unisom. I had really not bad morning sickness, but bad nausea and heartburn. So I did take something for heartburn during most of the pregnancy because it was triggering my panic attacks. I would get like heartburn would start my panic attacks. So I took that. I took obviously a prenatal, not just like one from the drugstore. Like I took a USANA one, and I'm still taking that right now. Right now, I'm exclusively pumping, and I've continued to take the prenatal. I took Vitex. There was some natural stuff that I took, some like herbal stuff, which again, most doctors they can't really comment on it unless you have a doctor who does herbal medicine. But they did recommend acupuncture. And I would also agree with that. I didn't do that for this pregnancy, but I've heard so many people say that acupuncture really helped them.
I love it.
And I believe that to be true. I think it can't not help you with your stress levels and oxidative stress and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's so good for me. I usually fall asleep on the table.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's great.
That for me, that was exercise during this pregnancy. I
Yeah.
continued I continued to exercise and stretching. I had really bad pubic pain, like whatever it's called, symphysis, pubis, whatever, through my hips and through the inside of my thighs and stuff like that. He was almost 9 pounds. That might have had something to do with it too. I was pretty big during this. I gained about close to 40 pounds.
Uh-huh.
So 35. Oh, it felt like a lot in the summer.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure it does because it's so hot.
Oh, it's so hot. So I took that stuff. I ended up giving birth 38 and 3.
Uh-huh.
Now, my doctor this time was not the doctor I had for the first time. I was, in fact, in a different country. So she actually didn't have any of my records from the first time around.
Uh-huh.
First time around, I had a doula and I wanted to give birth naturally.
Mm-hmm.
It ended up an emergency C-section. It was very traumatic, that birth experience, and quite scary. And this time around, because of how big he was measuring and stuff too, he was always like in the 100th or more percentile for his length, and his weight was always in the 90th percentile. And I was just like, okay. So we took the birthing classes because my husband wanted to take them. We did them virtually through the hospital here.
Mm-hmm.
But we decided we were going to schedule my C-section. And we were going to do it scheduled. We assumed there'd be a lot less stress that way and all this kind of stuff. That was scheduled for, it was Monday or Tuesday, July 25th. He was born on the 19th.
What happened?
He decided that night, I wasn't sleeping. I had really bad insomnia for like the 3rd trimester. I just wasn't sleeping well at all. I was trying to sleep sitting up, and the heartburn. I took the heartburn stuff. It didn't totally go away, right? So I'm sleeping, laying in the recliner, like just like a zombie, like not really sleeping. And that night, I woke up it woke me up out of my sleep to go to the bathroom to go pee. But it was like everything was soaked. And I was like, okay. Didn't really know because my water did not break with my daughter until I was at the hospital.
Uh-huh.
And I go pee and my husband's sleeping. And I'm like, this is about 11 o'clock at night. I go back to bed. 2 a.m, I wake up and it's drenched again. Like I'm just drenched. And I'm like, okay, something's a little weird. Go to the bathroom. There's no tissue or anything. There's nothing. There's no goopiness. Like it's just kind of clear liquid. And I was like, So I said to him, I'm like, James, I don't know. I feel like this might be it. And you just don't know. There's so many unknowns with pregnancy. It's a crapshoot. And so I was like, okay. So we call and they have that after hours service because this was like 2 a.m. Puts me through the hospital to a midwife. And I talked to her and I remember her from the clinic because I met her. And she says, okay. She goes, are you having contractions? No, nothing. No contractions. Nothing like that. She said, okay, why don't we wait till about 6 a.m? And I said, my mother-in-law can come over, stay with my daughter. She says, come to labor and delivery it's called ELA. It's like early labor assessment at the hospital. We'll check you out. We'll put you on the monitor. We'll see what's going on. Well, I had my bag packed anyway, right? Of course.
Sure.
I was like, we ain't coming back. I said it to my husband. I'm like, we're not coming back. So this is it. He's like, wait, what? I'm like, I'm telling you, we're not coming back. I get my bag. He has not packed his bag, of course. I'm like, okay, well, you're going to have nothing. And so we leave and we get to the hospital. We go up to ELA and it's not like gushing or anything, but it's a steady leak. And I'm like, it's a slow leak of fluid. Once you start leaking fluid, you have to get the baby out in a certain amount of time because otherwise it's just the placenta is not doing what it should be doing and whatever. So we do that and we are waiting for my doctor to get there. Turns out my doctor who I'm scheduled with, anyone who's been through something traumatic like this, when you bond with your doctor, you want them to deliver your baby. And it's not always possible.
Sure.
It's not. But she happened to be on call. I think this happened like this for a reason. She happened to be on call and so Dr. Nicholson shows up like my angel, like appears like a vision in the door I'm on this really uncomfortable stretcher, just like waiting to be seen, trying to watch Friends. And she comes in and she goes, okay, let's just see what's going on. they check and she's like, oh yeah, we're doing this today. I was like, doing what? She's like, we are having your C-section today. Like, oh, okay, let's do this today then. So take a deep breath. So they were going to get me in at 11 o'clock that morning, and an emergency came in. A woman came in on an emergency. Long story short, she obviously took precedence, which was fine. I still wasn't even having contractions, right? She took precedence, but it got complicated. Took a long time. My time keeps getting pushed back. And they say, okay, we'll get you set up in your post-delivery room. Like, you'll be a bit more comfortable. You can wait there. We'll call you to the operating room when we're ready. They're not ready till 3 p.m. that day.
Oh
I started having contractions. So I start going into labor. And I'm like, oh my God, I am like not happy by this point, because I'm just like, I need to get it. Like, I didn't prepare to have this naturally. I'm freaking out. And they got me in at 3 o'clock, and he was born at 3:44.
Wow.
By C-section. Mm-hmm.
Will you tell us a little bit about going into the operating room? What was that like?
So it can feel very lonely, because your significant other, your husband, your mom, nobody is allowed to go in with you.
Mm-hmm.
So they get you scrubbed up. They get your husband scrubbed up. You're wearing your gown, but they get you like disinfected and cleaned off and all this stuff. They give you something to drink before, some type of like painkiller or something. But then they wheel you back with the nurses, and your husband has to stay outside of the room till they call him in, because they have to administer the fentanyl, the painkiller, all that stuff when it's just you. It's a very sterile environment. It's very bright in there. A lot of people.
Cold.
It's cold. It's not fun. It is not fun. And I don't do well. A lot of people don't do well with the drugs. It does make your body kind of shaky, and it makes me just convulse. So they have you lean hunched over to make your back into an arch, kind of like the epidural, but it's apparently a really long needle. I did not look at it because I don't want to look at it, but it's a very big needle. They stick you with that, and it numbs you. It works. It numbs you, but you feel dead because you've got pins and needles, and you're dead weight. So they numb you, and really quickly they take you, and all four of them move you onto the operating table.
Wow.
Then your husband can come in, because they put a curtain here.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even see really what's going on. You can ask if you want to see some things. Every doctor's different, but we didn't see. He comes in, he's up by my head, and your arms they're not, they kind of are strapped down. They're out to your sides like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they test, they will poke you with things and say, can you feel this? Can you feel this, like below the waist? You say no, and then they're ready to start operating. So I said I was wheeled in at 3, and he was born at 3:44. So the whole thing, uncomplicated, it's about 45 minutes. It's that beginning part of the process, but my teeth were chattering and my body was shaking like that whole time. And so my husband's like, okay, they let you take pictures like up top here if you want. And then when they pull the baby out, that part at the end really hurts, because they push your whole stomach. I don't want to scare people. If you want me to tell them, that's what they do.
Yeah, no, this is real.
So they push, but I say it hurts, but it's not a lasting hurt. You're not, because of all the painkiller, you're not actually in pain. It's more like, it's like a big elephant sitting on your chest. And so I was like, that's the only time I like visibly, like audibly screamed. And then it's not as loud as labor, I guess. And then they pulled him out. And that part too was, my husband and I both found that the people in the room, especially the anesthesiologists, the people administering the drugs, we found them to be very cold. You're just another notch on the day for them. They don't really care, is what it comes across as. the one guy was on his phone. For some of it, my husband was irate. So we got a survey about the whole experience because I think the hospitals outsource some of the like those anesthesiologists, I think, work in various hospitals and they work independently.
Uh-huh.
And so they asked for feedback, and we're like, it felt so impersonal because he was literally just on like scrolling through his phone.
Mm-hmm. I
Because
love those
they're in
surveys.
there. Oh my God. We're
Mm-hmm.
brutally honest on it because why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, me too.
So that I was so glad my doctor was in there. And there was a couple nurses that were like angels. There are some angels through all of this journey.
Sure.
I 100% believe that there's people who do this job out of the goodness of their heart, and their heart is in the right place.
Yeah.
And we found those people. I was only in the hospital for 2 days after, like for 2 days. I recovered pretty quickly. The mental recovery is really hard. The
Uh-huh.
mood swings, the rage, really like a lot of rage after. And then the whole breastfeeding journey was extremely difficult. It did not work for us. So
Yeah, tell us
that
about that.
I had planned to breastfeed, and we your milk takes 4 or 5 days to actually come in, and but they want you to try and express colostrum, which is very painful when not for me nothing had come in. Some women get leaking before they give birth.
Uh-huh.
I didn't. And you feel inadequate because you can't produce. I had a almost 9 pound baby. I could not produce anything that was going to feed him. So they have formula at the hospital. Then I'm beating myself up about this formula. Like, I don't want to give him this. You're an emotional wreck at that point.
Yeah.
Anyway, they have lactation consultants. You really have to advocate for yourself, though. You really have to say, my advice in hindsight is go into it, even if you don't do a birth plan, go into it with an idea about things like breastfeeding so that and communicate that with your husband or partner so that they can have your back on it, so that at that time you can be like, I want to see someone from the lactation clinic, and I need to see them, and this is why, and and just make your wishes known. Because when you're emotional and you're tired and you haven't slept and you've just given birth and you're not able to vocalize, and I'm not saying the lactation clinic at our hospital was not good. It might be, but again, it felt like a loose end. It felt like a string that just was let go, kind of like the DNC, where they were supposed to follow up, I felt, and we just never closed the loop. So we stopped trying to get him to latch properly, and we just went straight to me pumping. Well, here we are 5 months later. Exclusively pumping is a full-time job. It's extremely exhausting. There's benefits to it, of course. Anyone can feed him, but I grieved that loss of not ever having the connection of feeding, of nursing him,
Yeah. How often do you have to pump?
3 to 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get rid of my night ones, right? My nighttime ones, because I do it twice at night right now. It's
Uh-huh.
very tiring. It takes me
Yeah.
an hour from start to finish to pump, to clean the parts, to sterilize, put them in the sterilizer, to bottle, to bag. I'm donating breast milk because I have an oversupply. So I've donated over a couple thousand ounces now
That's amazing.
to, yeah, it's called Mother's Milk Bank, and they donate to NICU families. So
Oh,
that part's been really, really fulfilling.
yeah.
They send a cooler to my house and I fill that up with bags of milk. So
That's
yeah.
great. So you recovered really well. How are you feeling today?
My doctor's protocol for the scar recovery was really helpful. So
Mm-hmm.
she recommended things like, I don't know if I have one sitting here, but like the scar tape, like the tape that I used that I just got off Amazon that really, really helped. I put that, it's like a silicone tape, and I put that on. In the beginning, you put it on more often, you work up to it, but it goes over the scar. I've got very minimal visible scar. What else did I do? Oh, just like the work on the scar, like the actual massage. I didn't have any, I have pretty good skin, like I don't have very sensitive skin, and I don't get infections or cuts or things like that very easily. So I think that did help a little bit just genetically. But that silicone scar tape and that scar massage and just working that area, because what I had after I had my daughter was I had very like loss of feeling. And there is still a little bit of that, a little bit of sensitivity around the scar on the one side. I have a little bit of a bulge there, but nothing like I did the first time, because the follow-up appointment 10 days later, I was in and she was checking and she was making sure that everything was healing properly.
Mm-hmm.
And I got back to exercising fully after 6 weeks, and I've been exercising. Core feels stronger than it did before.
Well, that's great. Now, did it hurt to massage your scar? It sounds painful to me. Okay.
Yeah, it did. What I did too, what I recommend is like take pictures. If you do end up having a C-section, take pictures of the scar every day, just to to make sure you're seeing it properly. Sometimes you can think, oh, it was really bad, but then you look back and actually it wasn't, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But your doctor might want to see that also. But yeah, you have to work up, you have to follow a specific way. I also did postpartum physical therapy, pelvic floor.
Oh, that's
I
great.
did a little bit of pelvic floor during my pregnancy, and I did some postpartum. Mm-hmm. And for me, the biggest pain in this phase has been my lower back. And that could be for breastfeeding too, like if you're actually nursing, because you're kind of like hunching over a lot. But for me, even pumping, I find that. So I would say something like physical therapy. If you have coverage for that, use it. Mm-hmm. Definitely use it. I had coverage. You're gonna hit your max out of pocket if you give birth in a hospital anyway. You're gonna max. So do all the acupuncture, do everything that you want to do that year that you give birth, because it's not going to cost you if you have that insurance, right? Yeah. So I'm now done the physical therapy, but I exercise every day at home. I would say there's still times that I feel tweaks here and there, and like I said, my lower back is pretty sore, but my baby just woke up from his nap.
Uh-oh. Is it time?
He just got up from his nap. The scar does hurt. There is sensitivity there. For some women, it's worse than others too.
Sure. Well, is there anything else you want to add to your birth or pregnancy?
I just would really say that the mental health part of it is the biggest thing to just stay on top of. One thing I did that I didn't mention yet, I got a pregnancy journal. I'm a writer, so it becomes more natural to me. But if you can document, so we bought one of those little Polaroid cameras and we took pictures of my bump every week. And then I had a journal where I documented, it asked you questions, but I also just pre-wrote some stuff, like how I was feeling. I wrote some letters to him, just thoughts that I was going through, and documenting some of that is really affirming. And it also just helps get it out of your head, so a lot of the trauma, a lot of the guilt, the shame, everything that we carry when we have a miscarriage, it lives inside of you, and your body remembers that. And things would happen during this experience. Certain ultrasounds I would go to, certain ultrasound texts that I would have would trigger these feelings, and I would get really defensive. I would get upset. I would get hysterical. I would go to these appointments. I dreaded going to some of the appointments. And then like I said earlier, other people were angels along the way. And so for as much as you might feel that it's hard to open up to the experience, I think you will be surprised that there's things that happen that will help you reaffirm your faith in humanity,
Yeah.
So
now, when did you start journaling for pregnancy?
So the journal I happened to use was coming out brand new, and it wasn't out till past my 12 weeks, but I started at 12 weeks.
Okay.
They have ones that you can start. There is parts in that book that start like 4 weeks or something.
Wow.
For me, we found out pretty quickly that I was pregnant because we had taken the letrozole. So I could have started. We started our bump pictures at 12 or 13 weeks too. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of cool. Every week we would do that.
Yeah, that's fun to look
Um,
back on.
hmm Yeah, pretty much I was just like huge at the end of it, but thanks, honey. But yeah, I would just recommend, yeah, just document it or find someone else. I know maybe a lot of these women have other people on the journey, meet with them on Zoom or have coffee with someone or just talk to someone. It can feel really lonely even once you are pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't say it anymore. My daughter brought me the pregnancy test. We get
Oh,
we gave them to my daughter and to our in-laws. We gave them these long boxes that had the pregnancy test in it at Christmas that year,
how
before
fun.
Christmas, to say the baby is coming.
That's
I think
fun.
that's, I know, I think that's kind of, I don't know if that answered it. I would say though, so one other thing, so I had my 6-week postpartum checkup. My doctor, the one who had said, I'm going to get you pregnant, she comes in and she says, "So when are we doing this again?" I'm like, "What?" She goes, "It went so well. Like it went so well." She obviously the backstory, like her, we'd had conversations about is this it or whatever.
Hmm.
I was like, I hadn't really thought about that, right? And so now that's the phase that every day we're in the back and forth of like, do we try again?
Yeah.
You hear about women all the time in their mid 40s who are still doing it, right? You're not, I don't ever, having been through this, I don't ever believe that you should think about how old you are. Just do what you're going to do. Other people care about it more than, but we care about it, obviously. We worry about it, but other people seem to care about this number and it's not helpful
Yeah.
at all. So now we're in the stage of the back and forth of do we or don't we have a good day? And we're like, okay, we can do this. And then like, 202, I don't know. It's weird though. I will say it's weird when you go from being the woman who's always trying to get pregnant to now you're pregnant. People don't talk about that a lot. Like, oh, you should be over the moon.
Yes.
Why? Like, yeah, okay, I should be happy, but it's a really hard transition. It is a
Yeah.
really a tender time.
Yeah. That's
It's
where I'm
not
at
a
right now.
natural. Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
It's it's emotional. Like we were saying before we were recording, you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop because you just have been there, and even though you're further than you were, you still can't help but feel that it's not real. I felt a lot of times it felt really surreal, and one of the things I had to consciously focus on was to do things that would bring me back into my body, somatic things
Uh-huh.
like meditation. I did a lot of meditation. I did a lot of grounding and yoga and just being with nature, with no noise, with no outside influences, because I couldn't hear myself through all the noise of everything that had happened and that experience with that male doctor and things that had happened. I was supposed to see him. I was supposed to see him. He was the last doctor in that rotation at the clinic, and I would have seen him the day before my scheduled C-section. Well,
Mm-mm.
Tristan came that week before, so I never had to see him.
Perfect.
It's like Tristan knew.
Let's hurry and get
uh,
out so we don't have to see that guy.
Dr. Evil, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh. So,
mhm.
what do you think has been your biggest challenge being pregnant in your 40s?
It's quite tiring. It is tiring. Yeah, I think just the aches and pains are a little bit more. I felt like, and I had a very healthy pregnancy, but I felt like just some of the swelling and stuff like that. I never noticed any of that when I was pregnant with my daughter. Just the excruciating hip pain. Just it feels like the symptoms maybe are a little more exaggerated. You're also not sleeping. I guess I don't sleep as well in my 40s than I did before. So maybe it just is exacerbated by being pregnant also.
Uh-huh.
But then that just floats right into having the baby. So, you know, but there are many things that I feel like are better too.
Oh,
I
like
feel
what?
like I just feel like I'm more myself. I'm more mentally, like I said, I advocated for myself better this pregnancy than I did last time. So I learned to trust my body more. I learned to listen to her, to just trust the process, and really going internally that whole time when people are like, well, you're in perimenopause. I just refused to accept that that was true because I felt in my body it was not true.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't true. And I think that's the gift of being a woman in your 40s, is you just don't take people's crap anymore. You're just like, okay, thank you for your opinion. And even, and it's the hard part too, people are always going to comment on things. I really did not like all the comments about my body, like just, oh, you're really big for X number of weeks, or the lady at the grocery store sticks out in my mind. You look ready to pop. I was 21 weeks. I was like,
21.
What? I was like, thanks. I also don't like that a lot of doctors force you to be weighed throughout the whole thing. Some doctors don't do that now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that. I don't think it's indicative of how healthy you are or not, or how healthy the baby is.
Uh-huh.
I put on all that weight. I lost all that weight,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think at the fertility clinic, she goes, "Do you mind getting on the scale?" And I was like, "Yeah."
You should say, "Yeah, I do."
I did. Hey, I did.
You shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
I don't believe if you're diabetic, or you have diabetes during your pregnancy, or you have reasons to get your blood sugar and all that checked, different story maybe. If you're gaining weight significant, like rapidly, whatever, or not gaining weight, of course. But if things are just kind of ticking along, I don't think there's any reason. There was parts of my pregnancy where I didn't put on a pound for like 3 weeks. And then there'd be parts where it was like I ate like half a pound that day and it went straight on. And I was like, how did this happen? So I was like 160, over 160 at the end. Mm-hmm. From my starting point. And so I don't think that it's necessary. If it's going to put you in a headspace that isn't good, then I wouldn't do it. There's a lot of things I said no to.
That's really great too. I think advocating for yourself is a big piece of having a great experience.
You'll grow as a woman, and within your relationship, your marriage, whatever, as well too, because even if you've had kids before, I think there's just things that we, as the person who carries the baby, go through that our husband does not. And I would have to really explain to him, like, this is why I'm doing it this way, and I'm not going to change my mind. And he would support me, but he often wouldn't have just naturally understood it. Whereas I was like, this is why I'm doing it. And, you might ruffle a few feathers on the way, but oh well.
That's okay.
Here we are, and I'm happy, and my baby's happy, and it was worth it. But that I still haven't processed all the things that happened along the way, and that's the work that begins after, with therapy or whatever you have access to. I haven't been back to therapy yet, and I need to do that.
Is there anything you'd recommend that would help prepare someone for pregnancy and birth over 40?
There's things that I read, like egg quality diet, things like that, Mediterranean diet. The way that I eat naturally lends itself to be quite, like, I eat a lot of greens, I eat a lot of grains, I eat kind of a Mediterranean style diet with olive oils and stuff like that. I do think that really did help. I don't eat red meat. I'm not vegan, but I only eat like chicken, turkey. I eat a lot of legumes and beans and stuff like that. Mm. I think diet plays a huge, not a diet, but like diet plays a huge part in it, and exercise. And I was not doing hardcore exercise by any means, but I was intentionally moving my body in my apartment every day.
Yeah.
I would go on YouTube and find a little video and just do it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of free resources out there. Yeah. And I'm not a doctor, so as long as you're cleared to do that, obviously.
Sure.
A lot of people thought that I shouldn't have been doing that because of my bleed.
Yeah.
But I listened to my doctor, and I listened to what I knew was going on. And
I'm glad y'all talked about it and came up with that decision together too.
We did.
Yeah.
Because I knew from that Facebook group that I had joined, like the subchorionic group, I knew that a lot of doctors recommend bed rest. A lot of them said, like my doctor said, like no penetration, don't put anything in there, like just leave it be, minimal exercise, things like that. But she didn't say you need to lay in your bed the whole time.
Yeah.
And honestly, my mental state at that point, if I had done that, I would have gone into a deeper depression.
Sure.
So I think it was good that I was still able, I went out for walks, for example. You can walk during most of this. Yeah, it's hot in the summer. If you have a summer baby, it's really hot. But
yeah. And what advice would you give yourself when you were pregnant if you could go back?
I would say to trust the process and to let some people help you. As much as I said I advocated for myself, I also could have let a little bit more in with help. There were people genuinely wanting to help me. And so I would say maybe be open to receiving the love that comes your way during that process. I sort of isolated myself a little bit more than needed to. It's hard though, when you've been through that, to trust people.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And what advice would you give other women who are pregnant, who are trying to conceive right now?
I would say I never looked at it as like, I have X number of good eggs left. I never really wanted to know that, because I just wanted to look at it from my mindset was, it just takes one good one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I needed to look at it like that instead of getting bogged down with all the numbers. Yeah, I had them and I had a file of all the stuff, right? My husband's very meticulous with stuff like that. But for me, I just needed to know that you still have a chance. You 100% nowadays have a chance. And women, I lived in England for 7 years. Women in Europe have healthy pregnancies and babies well into their mid to late 40s. There's some idea that you turn 40 and you turn into a pumpkin is not true. It's just not true. And I just refuse to believe that. In many ways, like I said, handling this pregnancy in my 40s, I've handled it better because I'm better equipped to handle it. And so therefore, I feel like that has a knock-on effect into all areas of trying to conceive, because I knew myself better. I was less bothered by outside influences. I was more determined in my mission. It became more clear to me what I wanted to have happen and what I needed to do to get there, So I would just say, truly, you don't turn 40 and have a rapid decline overnight into, this is it, just stop trying. Don't ever stop trying. If you want to keep trying, don't stop trying. But I just think there's so much misinformation out there. So many people. So it's like there's some people who profit off. Well, there is lots of people who profit off you not being able to, and the vulnerability that comes along with it too.
Sure.
And that's what we found in our experience with the fertility clinic with Shady Grove.
Yeah.
Not saying they were bad people or anything, but we really were very discouraged. If I hadn't sought out Dr. Nicholson on my own, I don't know where we would be today. It happened that way for a reason, but I wasn't willing to just settle for, well, this is the price of IVF, and if you can't afford it, oh well. And a lot of women are in that situation, and it's heartbreaking. I changed a bit of the way that I was eating, and I just changed my laser focus to that mindset that it just takes that one egg and that one time, and that was it. Because stress does really impact your egg quality. I think my sobriety obviously helps. I don't drink alcohol. I have that mindset when it comes to toxins. I changed a few things around the house. Like I got rid of my Wallflower Bath and Body Works plugins and switched some things over that might have been disruptive to my hormones. Probably was helpful as well. I'm not a huge I use a lot of natural products anyway. So I would probably recommend something like that. I don't think it can hurt.
Yeah.
There's a lot of toxins in and around our homes and our, places that we spend a lot of time.
Would you like to share how you help women?
Sure. Yeah. And actually, it's kind of good timing because starting in the new year, I host women's writing circles. And I have one on Friday mornings. I'm on Eastern time. I have one on Friday mornings, and then I have one on Sundays right now and morning. And it's just a space to gather. I give writing prompts, but you don't have to identify as a writer. I look at it more as we hold space for each other in a safe space for whatever. Not everyone in the group is in sobriety from drugs and alcohol, for example. Some people are. Some people are on a journey of grieving. They've had a significant loss, a parent, a child, whatever. Some of them are single and they're looking to find a relationship. They're getting older. They're worried they're not going to get married, women, things like that. All these kind of issues that we as women might face throughout our lives come together. I bring the writing prompts. We do a little meditation at the beginning. We take an hour and a half and we do a couple writing prompts. Then they have an opportunity to share what they've written. And so a big part of any healing journey is being witnessed in your healing. So when you get to that stage that you want to be witnessed or you just want to be there, it motivates me. If I see people on my screen writing, I'm more likely to write too, right? So it's nice to have a space where you can just gather and do that. You might write about some weeks might write about nothing, or you might be angry that you have to write, or you might not want to be there, but you usually feel better that you go, and you might say nothing. You can keep your camera off. I don't force you to do anything, but it's just a really nice space. And we have a couple of people in England. We have people in different places in the States and Canada, not a big group, small group, like under 10 people usually.
Uh-huh.
We do different themes. Like this month in December, we were looking at boundaries because family and Christmas and boundaries, how to talk to people. People are going to ask intrusive questions about your journey to conceive. People are going to ask about why you would want to try in your 40s. I had people be like, oh, good luck with that. Why would you want to do that again? I want to be retired. It's like, well, that's good for you. I mean, That's great. You're going to be so old when that kid hear everything. And this is not helpful. So we did boundaries this month. We're looking at procrastination in January. So it's loosely based around a theme, but the core of the work that I do is belonging. Mm-hmm. And so when you'll share my website, and that really was what I was searching for in sobriety. Before I got sober, I was always searching for a place to belong. And I always felt different and unique, and that I didn't belong anywhere in the world. And I found purpose in sobriety. I share quite a bit on Instagram. I've also found connection through this journey with other women who are in their 40s, and then doing exclusively pumping and being a milk donor is like a whole little subset also, because middle of the night, I'm connecting with other people who are up in the middle of the night pumping, and and like I said, just grieving the loss of not being able to nurse my son. So that felt like a failing too. So, going through that and being where we are.
Yeah. Would you like to share your Instagram handle and your website?
Yeah. My website is keziacalvertcreative.com. And on there, you'll find a link to my Substack where I share writing. Not every week, but I share writing on there. I talk about motherhood, postpartum, sobriety. My Instagram is the Sober Elephant Chronicles. And I've had that since the beginning of my sobriety journey. It's mostly sobriety based, but it actually is to do with motherhood and postpartum and stuff as well on there. So, just a safe space for women, I guess.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations again on your 3-year sobriety. And Kezia, thank you so much for sharing your story.
I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
And that wraps up another episode on Over 40, Fabulous and Pregnant podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next Monday. Hi, buddy.
This is Tristan. Who's that? What are you
Hi.
saying? There you are. Look at your hair. He's a happy boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, big boy. Mommy's gonna be out in a minute. Oh, he's gonna try and be on the computer. All right.